Greetings, folks. It's Napalm Dawn on G4G, and today we get to do one of those videos that you guys always want to see, and that's a video about how is Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux Beta 4 going. So I got in touch with Goofy last night and said, alright, so I think it's time for a hype video because you've been posting a lot on Facebook. You've got a lot of things that seem to be progress from the last video. So can you give me a lowdown on some of the stuff that you've been working on lately? And he gave it to me, so I've got some stuff to read to you guys, and I've got some pictures for you for what he's working on. So, according to Goofy, things he's working on for Beta 4. He is starting with the biggest thing, which is combat. That has been the major holdup for why Beta 4 has been taking so long to get done. So the overall arcing theory with Beta 4 is that Goofy was pushing it closer to more of a release candidate than some of the other betas have been. So combat has been one of the biggest things, and rather than just do a very incremental beta or what you might see in other software games and patches, a very small patch that fixes a few things, Goofy was kind of throwing the whole kitchen sink at this one. So he said he's been doing about an hour or two a night in combat. The good is that statuses are working, which includes dots, stat modifiers, dialogue, tag modifiers, and multipliers all seem to be working. So multipliers, you would see things like crits, you would see things like exploitation. We all know what dots are. Stat modifiers are like rising up buffs. Dialogue in relation to combat, I'm not really too sure what that would be. I'm sort of thinking of like Deadpool with his moves like Nerf Bat and stuff like that, but maybe it's also the dialogue that pops up when you actually do an ability. Tag modifiers, I think it's like, okay, you have some Warrior 3s out there, and you have some X-Force out there, and Psylocke is there, so Psylocke is making Archangel invisible. I think that's what he's going for in that. The problem is resting when it comes to combat. The problem is resting in things like taunts, counters, follow-ups, and barriers. So shields are being a little bit of an issue. Taunts, counters, and follow-up, that makes sense that it's an issue because even Playdom had issues with those things during their times. Like, if we remember, Iron Fist could apply statuses on his counters and follow-ups for a while, and a lot of people could. Like, Pesty could apply his Nano Plague at nearly 100% accuracy if he was Infiltrator Pesty, and then they nerfed that a little bit. But then again, if you remember when we had the burst of the P4 tunes, where Emma was running that Infiltrator ISO that allowed her to pre-counter, not post-counter, and if you didn't live through that time of PvP, what would happen is you would slap that ISO on the Infiltrator Emma. Emma would see an attack coming, she would pre-fire Psychic Tap, which means as you were literally swinging at her, she would Psychic Tap you, which means you had no chance to abort the move and avoid the Psychic Tap. So if you were Null and you were going to go hit her with a hammer and she saw you coming, she would Psychic Tap you, Null would continue the move, hit with the hammer, and then get hit with the big beefy Psychic Tap. So I hope you realize that you should not be upset in any way, shape, or form with the work Goofy is doing, because even Playdom had these struggles, and that was an entire development team, not Goofy building an Iron Man with a box of scraps in a cave. So yeah, definitely learn to give him some space on that. Dots, I mean, what he has working is amazing in and of itself, but to hear that taunts and counters and follow-ups are being problematic isn't surprising. And you may say, well, barriers sounds a little weird. Like, okay, Nap, I get what you're saying, taunts, counters, follow-ups, that's tough, but barriers, remember the game has a lot of reactive barriers. It has barriers that kick in after being attacked, or barriers that build up after an action. I think like Iron Man had certain moves where he would apply a barrier post action. So again, like not particularly surprising there. These all add additional sequences into the action sequence. Yeah, so they sort of extend the turn for that character. In playing Magic the Gathering, it's like going to play a creature summon, but then somehow applying another card that modifies the creature summon. They look to be adding correctly, but most every time one of them actually tries to run, I'm getting a lot of errors, loops, wrong animations, and code stopping, but it's not constant. Remember, Goofy is actually trimming Playdom's code. Part of the other reason why Beta 4 has taken a while is that he is also rewriting and condensing a lot of the combat and statuses so that things are more optimal. Like, if you had a boss that applied a specific dot, and then 2 seasons later, a mob applied a similar dot, but it was coded as a different entry, even if it did the same thing, that's wasted code space. It bloats the code, so why not combine them into the same thing and reference the same data set? So Goofy's been doing a lot of that work too. I'm trying to redo the action sequence with these errors in mind so that they don't affect the rest of combat, so I just don't need to redo that. Hopefully this will fix the errors. If you fight a battle without these things, they seem to complete just fine. Completing a battle will work like the Beta 3 simulated, where you can level up the agent and the hero. So we will continue to see progress from Beta 3's not combat items. Drops, items, and distress calls still need to be implementing. In the meantime, he's working on several other things that do not require as much focus, so here's some of the things you're going to see in Beta 4. Allies. Aside from 2 Easter eggs, all allies that are available and will be available are unlockable. Allies will be collectible every 25 battles. Collect all, and they will cycle through the available allies and randomly generate what is received from the allies based on a table I've shown before. So he's talking about when you would visit your allies. You're going to get silver, command points, energy, and more. That's just like when the game was live. The flight deck. Remote ops jets are buyable, upgradable, and can be sent out. Sending a remote op will mark a character as busy and remove them from the character selector for operations and combat. You'll get the choice to collect, resend, or resend all when they are completed. Missions last a set amount of battles. So if you've never heard this before on the channel, Goofy is changing a lot of things to be time-based into battle-based. So what that means is you are more richly rewarded for spending time in the game than for spending time out of the game. There was a period of time when MAA was live where I was sort of stuck in terms of my progress. I was limited mostly by the fact that I didn't have a lot of people that I knew as friends that played the game. So my ability to do things from allies was super limited, and it hurt my spec ops and other things. It wasn't until I saw one of those post for agent friends type posts on the MAA wiki when I realized I could open my Facebook up to random people I've never heard of before or know or seen, and just put them in a group if I don't want them seeing my post. That's what blew the game wide open for me, is the ability to add people, even if I didn't know them personally, get them into my game, get them as allies, get the login stuff from them, get the flight deck stuff from them. And that's really what broke the game wide open for me when I had gone super stagnant. And the best thing you could do at that time was to not play the game in a lot of ways. When your energy ran out, you were actually being paid off not to run the game, because you would run a long flight deck. Like if you were asleep, you ran a 6 or 12 hour flight deck. This is something that I brought up to Goofy early on in development. I said, it kind of sucked. You had a 6 hour flight deck and then you had a 12. 12 was way too long for how most people sleep. So you'd wake up and your flight deck would still be inaccessible for 3, maybe even 4 hours. But if you did 6, you had 2 hours of them being back on the deck, and it was wasted with not being collectible. So at the time, Goofy did actually insert an 8-hour one. However, they're now mission based, so in order to progress your background work, you're gonna just do combat. And that makes sense, because how thirsty are we all gonna be to play this game when we actually can? I mean, you can now with Beta 2 and 3, but you know what I mean, the next beta or the release candidates. The carrier will display Christmas lights for several days of the week and hide them all other days. The exact days you will see the lights have not been finalized. Pop-ups. Nearly all open and most will be usable. Options and news are the main two not showing yet. Pop-ups block you from clicking items behind them and must be closed. That's standard. Team page is almost set. He wants to add in lock checks to see if AISOs and EISOs being unlocked and hiding and showing them being dependent on that. Training will mark a character as busy and they'll be unusable until you complete training. Training, again, is based on the number of battles. So here, where the original version incentivized you to spend money and gold and credits to speed things up, and again, time, Goofy is incentivizing you to playing the game. Yes, there is, admittedly, there is a drawback like when you go to bed. That is where the old timer style would work out. If you sent out a 6-hour flight deck and then you went to sleep for 7 or 8 hours, that was handy because you couldn't play the game anyway, so why not let time be your best friend in this one? The way Goofy's got it is that battles will be your best friend. So it just changes up where is the inactive part of your day. So rather than sleeping through something and letting time take care of it, you're getting it more on the front end and you're letting your own activity push things forward. Store, still needing to make sure all items unlock at the right time. Buying items is completely working. Selling still needs to be implemented. Research should be set. Looks pretty good there. Research times are combats based on the original duration. You'll be able to see all researches, including the future Spec Ops one. So that means the Spec Ops is where you would have to research things like the Odin Cane and the Phoenix items and things like that. They'll be available. Lockboxes probably won't add much more than he's already shown, and we'll look at that in a moment. PvAI, in other words, PvP. He's still trying to get it working, still needs to work on setting up, unlocking the missions for it. There will be 5 ranks. Each rank will take 5 to 10 battles to advance to the next level. Complete 5 ranks and get that season's reward. Hold on for your questions there. Subsequent seasons will remove the lowest rank and add a new rank. Previous seasons may be playable as practice fights and as challenge fights, which will be 5 to 10 levels higher than you, and neither of these will use PvP tokens. So what we're talking about for PvAI, since there is no interconnectivity between the clients, if you've never heard this in a video before, the way PvP will run when the game is in its release candidate is that a PvP season will start. And hello, Chewie. A PvP season will start. And for each rank, gold, diamond, silver, bronze baddie, adamantium, vibranium, panthermanium, all of those things, you will go up by winning 5 to 10 fights in each rank, and then you go to the next highest one, and if you complete all the battles, you get the rewards of that season. Then, as the seasons progress, the meta teams that you used to see will eventually fade. Because at the end of the game, who was using Iron Man and Captain America for their PvP team? Nobody. Some people recently have brought up in the Discord channel that, well, what if we still had those crazy teams just to keep things fresh? And some people were saying, you know, oh, you could see a team about 5 seasons old. Yes and no. You would not see certain teams showing up from 5 seasons ago because the game would kill them. Not just power creep, but if, like, remember what happened to Heroic Age Iron Fist, or hey, remember what happened to Molly. Remember what happened to pre-firing Emma. The worthies would go through nerfs and buffs. Certain things stopped being viable because Playdom made it that way, and certain things stopped being viable because the community made it that way. So things like Pesty Red Hulk, Pesty Enchantress, Quick Lock, Quick Bags, Quick Jugs, all of those could possibly have continued beyond their super popular seasons, and then the ones who were nerfed out of existence couldn't. So I made mention, and this seems to be gaining some traction. I can't guarantee that it will actually be available in the game ever, but I had brought up the fact that I think you could create a PvP Hall of Fame within the game. In other words, a PvP simulator where you could fight classic meta teams preserved in stone, so that no matter, once that season hit that created that team, like, you're not day one going to be able to fight Null and Kurth. Obviously not. But once the Null and Kurth season hit, and it then proceeds further and further beyond that, including the original content the development team is making, have a simulator where certain teams are etched in stone. So, for example, Invisible Woman Rescue. We all know that was a stalled defensive team on the last day of PvP to slow your defense down so they didn't take as many fights. Maybe they would win, probably not. But if they lose, it takes 10 minutes time to get through them. That was their goal. Why not enshrine that team in the PvP simulator so that people can see what it was like to fight those teams, even if they're no longer the meta? Molly and Iron Fist, Pesty and Enchantress, Havoc and Pepsi, Nico and Pesty. Just take certain teams and enshrine them in there, and leave them basically as like a Hall of Fame, so that you can always see those classics. Like, you can go on ESPN's archives and see, like, I don't know, the 1962 Yankees win the World Series if you want to. So why not do that for PvP? It's a feature that I'm requesting. I don't know that it will ever appear in the game, but I think it would be fun. One of the last things I talked to Goofy about when it comes to PvP is that we can't just create a template of hit points and stamina and accuracy and attack power, because certain teams use the armory in different ways. If you were running Pesty and Red Hulk, you used a lot of tacticians, used a lot of scrappers, and you used bruisers. So you tried to bump your hit points up, you tried to bump your defense up, and that's really what you were going for. You tried for the long game. If you were running Star-Lord and Rocket, Star-Lord and Quicksilver, Spitfire and Blade, you tended to put everything into attack. So you would go crit from Scrapper, not just accuracy from Scrapper, but crit and accuracy from Scrappers, and attack from Blasters, and that's where you changed your armory, and that's where you changed your heroes to hopefully kill somebody in the first round of combat. So Goofy is going to try and work on implementing things where different teams do stick to the theme, because you're not going to be fighting somebody's real armory or hero loadout, but Goofy's going to try to make the theme appropriate for the team. So if you run into a Pesty Enchantress team, they're probably going to have much higher hit points than a Quick Jugs team. So moving on from PvP, Spec Ops. He's going to try and have the first 11 Spec Ops working in Beta 4, and they will unlock similar to PvAI. Still need to create the XMLs for Spec Ops 12 and 15 through 18. These have been the XMLs that have been very, very hard to find. They are literally the angel shaft from heaven, Holy Grail type music. If somehow we can get those XMLs, they have been very, very tough to find, and they've been one of the treasures of the deep that we need to get. The simulator will not be more complete than what he's shown. Missions, combat scores will include the multipliers, so that's like your speed, your heroes, do they go together? Like, is it Sif and Thor? Is it smartest man in the room multipliers, things like that. Top 5 scores on missions are saved and replace the top 5 in the mission info. Tasks, Goofy is working on implementing tasks, and that will be part of the release schedule and unlocking of items. And that's about what he can think about. So the pictures that Goofy has sent me, they look like this. So here's some stuff of the jets where you can buy the jet and then start collecting them, sending them out, or resending all of them. The mission select screen is looking really, really good. Things seem to be just neater in the UI and everything here. It also saying the unlock conditions and everything. Over here, this is what the task list is eventually going to look like and what starting the complete tasks look like. And here you can see this pop-up would have to be closed in order to interact with the things behind it. Lockboxes and simulator challenges. You can see the UI is coming around pretty nicely over here. This lockbox, if I remember correctly, was Destroyer's... Oh, no, that's Omega Sentinel. Yes, that is Omega Sentinel, because that is the Omega symbol right there. So that's Omega Sentinel. Man, don't you feel bad for Omega Sentinel? Like, she has been in no games since Marvel Avengers Alliance. I don't even know that she's in Contest of Champions. Like, I kind of feel bad for that Robo Girl. She has no press whatsoever. And, you know, she was pretty... Oh, yeah. Not Invisible Woman Rescue. No, the stall team was Omega Sentinel and Rescue. I'm totally sorry. Yes, later on in the game, you could have used Air Pressure, Invisible Woman, and Rescue and made a really tough stall team, but the original stall team was Omega Sentinel and Rescue. My bad. Fuck that one up. Here's a screenshot of his UI with a jet that is ready for collect. To collect a one to purchase, the Christmas lights, Black Widow being in a jet, and a jet that hasn't been deployed yet. The fonts fit the buttons really well. They look pretty well spaced, and centered team is maybe a little bit jank, but not too bad. Here's another shot of that. Here is what PvP screens would look like, and your lock boxes with some Satanic covers over there. And I think there may be a few things here on... So in Facebook, he released a poll saying, okay, originally Season 2 would unlock if you unlocked Season 115. That was the original unlock. So he put up a poll and said, well, do you want it to be unlockable based on heroes owned or mission stars, or when you complete Chapter 1 or Season 1, Chapter 12? And that seems to be what the community is going for. So in other words, the community wants a very linear unlock system over there. Here's one of the pictures that we've already seen. I'm just making sure we're not missing. Ignore these. These are not being posted by Goofy. So here's some more screenshots of what he had been doing. So yeah, it looks like Goofy gave me all of the pictures that he's been posting on Facebook so far. So there you go, guys. Aside from the video that I've done before, letting you guys know what to expect in Beta 4, we now have a big update. And to be honest, I mean, we may have been waiting a while, and I feel you on it. I've been waiting a while too. It's been easier for me having been working since March and not streaming Marvel Avengers Alliance Redux every day like I used to. Well, Monday through Friday I was streaming it. If I was still streaming it and I was waiting this long for Beta 4, I would probably be pulling my hair out, but you can see all the work that Goofy's been doing, and the things that are limiting him are the exact things that if you've paid any attention to Playdom's woes over the years, they are the things you would expect Goofy to be stuck on, because even Playdom was stuck on them, you know. No offense to Playdom devs in the group. So anyway, there's an update on Beta 4. Do not ask me when it will release. I don't have that date. I cannot give you an estimation, but suffice to say, I don't like to pin Goofy down for it, because if he does get pinned down and he says a certain date and then that date comes by, everybody knows there's disappointment involved. And I think he understands that, and he doesn't want to put the community in that kind of position. But by September, maybe a week or two into October, I think we're looking at something here. I have a feeling Goofy is wrapping up. I'm not speaking from a place of knowledge. It's still an assumption and an opinion. But I kind of have a feeling Goofy's getting ready to drop Beta 4 pretty soon on us over here. And, you know, hey, we've got Venom 2 and Shang-Chi to keep us occupied in the meantime. And What If every Wednesday. So, alright, there you go, guys. Hope you enjoy the video. And certainly happy to produce up another Redux Beta 4 package for you guys. See ya.